who were really responsible get off scot-free.
So tell us about some of the other places where you've been successful.
Well, one of the things we've done is we took on a convention center here in San Diego. Our goal was definitely we wanted it privately funded. It was a big publicly funded convention center. We don't have any problem with convention centers. In fact, they're a pretty good moneymaker in some circumstances, but it shouldn't be paid for by the government. And we took it to court.
Or rather by the middle class to make rich people richer.
Sure. Why should we subsidize the hotel and motel business when they're the ones that benefit? And that's fine for them, but why should we be paying the taxes? So we suggested, our goal has been, and this has happened with a lot of different issues, is simply to put it on the ballot. Because oftentimes these issues do not reach the ballot. They try to pass them, they set up fake organizations. We had this with a sports stadium. They'll make up a fake organization. They call them a sports stadium authority, which is really just a sham agency. And then they let them issue the bonds or raise the taxes, and that way, supposedly, we don't get to vote. And we battle this. Oftentimes we lose because the courts have accepted this more often than not. But you got to go after them, because otherwise they'll do more of it. In the case of the convention center, we won and we lost. We finally forced them to have a vote, but we didn't have what our city charter called for, which is what's called a 2/3 vote for issuing bonds. They managed to get the courts to let them do it with a simple majority, and we were not able to beat that particular vote. But the main thing was we got the vote. They weren't going to have the vote, which interestingly, the delay that occurred while we had the vote saved them $1 million a year, because the interest rates and the price of steel dropped dramatically, which irritated them to no end, because the normal course of these things is that they design these projects, they lowball the figure, and the price goes up. In this particular case, just through luck, it actually went down.
So what about that? What about sports subsidies? That's another big boondoggle. And what I was talking about before was, again, the people that invest in sports are usually very wealthy people. And the people that are paying the taxes, the people that pay the majority of the taxes, are the middle class.
And also, I think what is forgotten, we think of the owners as getting the chunk of the money, but an awful lot of the money actually goes to the players. Well, that's nice. Well, why should a person who's basically playing a game be making $2 million, $4 million, $6 million? I have no problem with them making that money, but why should we subsidize it? The studies have indicated that a lot of the money spent on sports stadiums basically artificially inflates the already high salaries of professional sports figures and does not, as they oftentimes claim, bring in income. What happens with a sports stadium is basically, if you bring in a sports team, you draw income from the bowling alley, the movie theater, the restaurants. So you move money around within the jurisdiction, within the city, let's say, but you don't bring money. People don't flock to a city from far away like a convention. It's different than a convention. And we've had some success. We lost on the original case here in San Diego, but there's been such an uproar about the consequences, because there was what we had in San Diego, what we call a charger ticket guarantee, which is a remarkable concept.
Well,
we don't need to get into.
Explain that, because this is, again, that's a tax too. I mean, all of this is basically a tax.
Well, the charger ticket guarantee was truly a remarkable tax in that the city agreed to pay for any empty seats. And this happened back in 1996. And what was interesting is from 1996 through 2003, we never had a winning season as a result. In fact, the contract was drafted so that the chargers, under the contract as it was structured, actually made 85% more not selling the ticket. It was dumber than just a subsidy. It was an anti-win subsidy, and it worked.
You had whenever there was an empty seat, the taxpayers had to pay for that empty seat, and on top of that, they didn't let someone in free to sit in it.
Sometimes they let people in.
Sometimes
they did, but the net result was that we paid millions and millions of dollars every year, and because the Chargers really didn't have a concern about winning, they went for 7 years without a winning season. This year, contract's been changed, not all for the better, but one thing they did get rid of was the Charger ticket guarantee. This year, the Chargers were 11-5 and went to the playoffs. Is there a connection? Well, you would think so. I mean, after all, once the owner is interested in putting people back in the seats, he better put a better product on the field.
Right.
Not a surprise, really.
So not only do sports subsidies, are they not profitable to the community? They are tax raises. Okay, you're paying for the taxes. They take money from the middle class and give it to the upper classes, but they also make the sports games you're watching mediocre, really bad, lower the quality of the entertainment value of the sport.
It depends on the contract, but this was really one of the truly classic ones. It was interesting from our standpoint because it went through. Nobody believed us, and in a sense, it's good we lost the court case because people got to see what we were talking about was right. And it's been of issues in San Diego in the last 100 years, this has probably been in the top 3. More people are mad about this issue. Been incensed at the politicians who did it, at the team. The team is now looking for another new stadium here in San Diego. Well, the sentiment has changed. They're not going to have a rollover situation where we're going to go for it. They may still get it, but they're going to have to fight tooth and nail because a lot of people aren't in favor of it. Even though they had a winning season, people are ticked.
So basically, sometimes even if you fight and lose, you can still win.
Oh, yeah.
Because the next time around, they're not going to try it, or they're going to lose what they gained eventually. And it seems to me that these bureaucrats are really shaking in their boots whenever you get behind something. Are they nervous? Do you make them nervous?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But the point is, if we don't do it, oftentimes nobody does it, and it makes them look closer at what they're doing. This particular case went through before we had a chance to challenge it in front of the city council, but now they know we're looking, and They get embarrassed. They don't like getting embarrassed. They'll sell out to special interests, and they're
It's all you can do behind closed doors.
That's right, and there's less of that now. There've been a number of things. Our city is great. I mean, we've got all kinds of issues. We've got 3. One of them died, but we have 2 city councilmen up on taking bribes from strip joints. We got the SEC and the FBI who've come in and taken all kinds of records because we've lied on our prospectuses, on our bond issues. We've hidden huge amounts of debt so that we could issue the bonds. We've got a mayor and a city council who are at odds with our city attorney, who is threatening to take them to court. We've got wonderful things going on in terms of finally getting back to some degree of confrontation and accounting on what has been in the past done in secret and done for ulterior motives that were not for the public good.
Drag it out into the light of day, whether you win or lose.
Yes.
I think that's a good way to put it. And then also, someone going back to the issue of being a feared tax fighter, someone actually tried to bribe you, not to go after a tax.
That was a very interesting case. Technically, it was legal. We were opposed to the convention center. We wanted to vote, and so they wanted to basically. It was a group called the Port Tenants Association, which is a group of businesses right around the convention center, and they wanted to meet with me. And I've made it clear to people that I will meet. And so we had a meeting. I brought my attorney, and we sat in the big boardroom with their attorneys, and they made a pitch that said basically, we will pay you $100,000 if you'll be quiet for 60 days. We want to simply get this through without anybody complaining, and you're the guy we have to worry about. And I told him, well, not only no, but hell no, and thanks for the offer. Anyway, we talked a bit, and then we that hostile, and we got up and left. About a week later, they started talking about the fact that I had tried to bribe them. I solicited a bribe. But what they forgot is when we left, we carried the 6-page document with us that they had written up making the offer. And so naturally I faxed it to everybody in the press, and they were terribly, terribly embarrassed. And we had a lot of fun with that. So yes, and there were a couple of columns about the guy who can't be bribed. Actually, I said I could be bribed. I don't want to sound like someone. My wife's a little worried about the fact I didn't take the $100,000. I told him that there were a few more zeros afterwards. And in fact, what I suggested specifically, if they would offer to end world hunger, I'd change my position. But couldn't bring them around. No.
Well, so what makes you interested? I mean, you do this because you're a libertarian and because you believe, in what you're doing. What makes you interested in the Libertarian Party? What has made you go out there and become such an effective political activist and be involved in the Libertarian Party for so long?
Well, I came upon the Libertarian Party, and your typical disaffected, cynical person's not happy with either party, probably lean more towards the Republicans. Mm-hmm. And it took a while to get into the libertarian viewpoint and learn about it and basically understand the rationale behind positions that sometimes are counterintuitive, such as legalizing drugs, which I fully favor. And then after a while, I started getting
So you think on September 11th, the FBI should have been arresting terrorists rather than medical marijuana patients?
Or in New Orleans, they had a 6-month operation with six agents or more watching a brothel. Which is not even a federal issue. They somehow had they were having a great time.
Instead of arresting terrorists.
Instead of protecting the country, they were off doing.
Well, that doesn't sound counterintuitive. That sounds very mainstream.
Yes.
So anyway, go right ahead. Sorry to interrupt you.
Well, I started off with Prop 13 back in 1978 and got a little bit involved in that. And it's kind of a slippery slope because there are not many people doing this kind of activity. There's room for participation. So if anyone wants to get involved in these areas and is willing to come forward, and I try to have fun at it, which